Hey, this is WhyBeAre with BeamNG.drive, and today we're going to be taking a look at the ETK 800 series, which is a new vehicle that was added with the 0.5.2 update. As you can see, there are a lot of configuration options available to us, with the biggest difference being the engine, suspension setup, and the wheels. So we're just going to start off with the 854T, which is the first one on the list, which is the touring model with a turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. And we're going to generally stick to the automatics because in my testing, the automatic is ever so slightly faster than the manual. Now, there are two details on this car that tell me what brand it is inspired by to me personally, but basically it's supposed to just be a generic 4-door German wagon. Now, the two details that tell me it's a BMW inspired vehicle though, is first off, this grille is so similar to the iconic kidney grills you see on a BMW, you can't not make that comparison. And the next thing, which is a little more of a smaller detail, is these rear tail lights are basically a flipped version of the ones you'll see on a BMW wagon. So this one you see, it kind of matches up at the top, but then the bottom it changes in height. On a BMW it matches up on the bottom, but there's a change in height on the top. So it's like if the light was flipped basically. So those things make me think, yeah, this is probably inspired by BMW. Anyways, so let's get to kind of how this car drives. This one, like I said, has a turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. It makes just about 220 horsepower. So it can get moving, but it's not exactly what I would call a fast car. It can get to 60 miles per hour in just under 7 seconds, which isn't that bad, but that's not what I would exactly call fast. The handling for this car is very understeery, which kind of makes sense for it being a fairly long wheelbase wagon. And it being like a luxury vehicle as well, it's going to be set up to understeer. So right there you can kind of see it understeering just a bit, and understeers again when you turn the wheel and then nothing happens. Oversteers when you turn the wheel and you steer too much, kind of like this. And the only reason it did that is because I yanked on the e-brake. Now normally when I'm driving this car aggressively, that's actually kind of how I go around the corners though. I just tap the e-brake just a bit to enter the turn to just get it to steer in a little harder and a little more aggressively. And since it has a fairly long wheelbase, it's actually really easy to recover itself while you go around the corners like that. It's actually pretty fun to drive this thing, which is unexpected for a car that's set up the way it is. Anyways, let's go ahead and just, whoops! Crash it right into there. So does it still drive? It actually will somehow, but first let's take a look at the damage to the vehicle. So on this side, the side that's undamaged, we have, looks like something going on with that front fender, and the door is a little off from the shape of the fender, but that's it. Now onto the side with all the damage. That thing has been bashed in. The door is ruined. The A-pillar's all bent up. Over here on the back bumper's destroyed. The lights are blown. That the hatch isn't closing anymore. We got damage all over the place. That was actually a pretty hard hit. And to be honest, I'm surprised this thing runs. Now you can kind of see from the tire smoke right there that this is a rear-wheel drive vehicle. There are all-wheel drive configurations that we'll be taking a look at later on. But this is kind of like the base gas engine model, which is just rear-wheel drive. And we're not moving that much, so let's see if we can just get to the cliff and then jump off the cliff, which is just outside of this tunnel, although I really can't go to the right that much. I mean, the left that much. I'm getting pulled to the right. Oh, we couldn't really fall. Well, is there any more damage to the car? I don't know. Let's pull it out and find out, and maybe get some more damage in the process, because why not? Oh, we accidentally flipped it over. Well, let's flip it upright. Oh, we flipped it on its side. Let's flip it this way. See, I'm trying to damage it, but it's already so damaged, I don't think I did much. All I did was pop the wheel off. But otherwise, damage looks pretty similar to what you already saw, so let's just reset it. So you've seen the exterior some. How about the interior? There are actually two different interior designs you can get. This is just the lower base model version of the interior. When we get a car that has a nicer one, though, we'll be taking a look at that as well. And the thing that was the most interesting about this interior to me is that GPS unit, which is like a fully functional GPS unit that works on all the stock maps, at least, that are just kind of like roads. Like, this doesn't quite work on the port map. It just shows the logo for the brand, but maps like this where you actually have roads, it works totally perfectly. Like, it works exactly as you would expect. It shows all the roads and stuff, and I know if I jump off the cliff right to my left right here, I might be able to land on a road, or I might land in a tree. Let's see what happens. Both! Oh my goodness, that actually worked! Like, that worked beautifully! Oh no! But my car caught on fire. Okay, well, it worked great until the car caught on fire. Then it worked magnificently. The amazing part is it almost still wants to drive. Like, the drive line is toast. But the engine will still rev up somehow, even though this thing is all on fire, and you can hear the turbo down spooling when I let off the gas. We can just coast down the hill, though. It's amazing. How far can we possibly get? Well, let's look at the GPS. I'm a fireball. I can't see nothing. So the guy in the car, he'd be dead and on fire. Oh, that's all the momentum we have. But yeah, the GPS is really cool. So let's go and reset this. Oh, tire just popped. All right, reset. Going back to the interior, though, it has all the things you would expect to see. It has a functional shifter, functional tachometer, functional speedometer, functional wheel, fuel gauge, and pedals. When you turn on the headlights, the gauges light up. Parking brake lights up a light on the gauges, as well as puts the shifter into the parking location. And the headlights are functional. You can see they're lighting up what's in front of them right now, and it gets way brighter with the high beams. Like, those are strong high beams. Doesn't look that much stronger when you look at just the vehicle itself, though. It just looks a little bit brighter. You also have the fog lights, which you can turn on by holding Alt and hitting N. So you can see those ones also light up what is in front of you, but just ever so slightly. And then on the back, you do have running lights, reverse light or brake lights, and reverse lights. Wait, reverse lights. There we go. I hit the wrong button. Sorry about that. So it has all the functionality to expect to see, which is never really something that's unusual about the stock vehicles, but it is kind of interesting to see what lights light up for what. Like, where are the brake lights compared to the running lights and all that? Now you know. And I think it's about time we switched up the vehicle. So let's just dump this one into the hole and go to a different version. Actually, we got some good damage on that one. Let's just teleport it up here. Take a look at the damage. Well, there's not that much damage, but overall, the damage that it did get seems very reasonable. Moving on to the next version of the car. This is the 854TC, which is the Comfort Touring model, which is very similar to the one we were just taking a look at, with the biggest differences being that it has a different front bumper. That is the Sport front bumper. It has chrome trim around the windows instead of the rubber trim seen on the other one. And it has a totally different suspension setup. So there's different struts, different shocks, different springs, and even different wheels and tires that are all more tuned for comfort than handling. So this one will handle even worse than when we were just driving, but it should be a smoother ride for the occupant, which is something that luxury car buyers usually care about more than handling capabilities. I'm in a minority to care about handling capabilities above all else. Excuse me. You know, I don't care if it shatters my spine as long as I can rip a G around that corner. That is awesome. Anyways, let's I think there's a road over here. Let's see if we can land on that one. Nope, we ain't so lucky there. That is not so lucky. All right, let's try to pull it out of the ditch. See if we can do that. Can't grab it from there. Grab it from there. Whoop! Out of the ditch. There we go. Perfect. So we can take a look at the damage to this. All damage seems pretty reasonable. We had a lot of damage on the roof, but that was a pretty big fall, so that should be expected. And overall, seems pretty good though. So let's go ahead and reset it. Next up is the ETK 854TD, which is a touring model with a turbocharged 4-cylinder diesel engine. So compared to the 854T, which is the first model we looked at, this one has a sunroof, a different gauge cluster for the diesel engine because the diesel engine doesn't rev as high as the gasoline engine, and a different transmission to properly match up with the diesel engine. Now, the diesel engine only makes about 150 horsepower, but it does make a lot more torque than the gas-powered engine. Unfortunately, even with the special transmission, it is still quite a bit slower than the 854T and the 854TC, which you were seeing earlier. As you can see, I'm flooring it right now, and we're just barely maintaining speed up that hill. Going downhill, we can make a little bit of progress on that speed. You can see 150 horsepower to move a reasonably large vehicle isn't going to go so well. This is definitely the slowest variant available. It's by no means fast. It's by no means good handling. In fact, goodbye. I like that cliff. Can you tell? It's a cool cliff. Good damage. Wow. I made a little tunnel. If only I had the RC Covet, I could drive it right under the tunnel I made. Oh well. Next up is the 856T, which is a touring model with the 6-cylinder engine. This is the one you would get by default if you just selected the car. Now, comparing this to the one we just saw, it has a naturally aspirated 6-cylinder engine that makes about 270 horsepower. It has a different rear splitter, so it can have a dual exhaust without looking funky. And it has different wheels on it. Otherwise, it's exactly the same as the one you just saw. Now, it is quite a bit faster than the one you just saw, though. Having another 100 horsepower does help with that. As you can see, even going up this pretty steep hill, it is accelerating without too much issue, although I got to make sure not to crash it into the wall just yet. I want to really chuck it off the cliff, given the right opportunity, which will be right here. Well, we're in a tree, and I can't see anything at all, so let's bring it back to where we spawned it. Now it's upside down, so let's get it upright. Make sure we grab by the frame, not the door. There we go. Well, perfect. So wheel destroyed, car non-functional overall. But again, damage looks very reasonable, although I don't know exactly what's holding on this door. This thing should just fall off if I pulled it just a tiny bit, I would think. Oh, it's attached at the bottom a bit. It just didn't look like it. Well, door's off now. Can also take this fender off. You don't need this anymore. Perfect. I don't know why I felt like doing that. I just felt like I needed to. Anyways, next version up is the 856 TC, which is the Comfort Touring model with the 6-cylinder engine. This one is very similar to the Comfort Touring model we saw earlier, with the only major differences being it has a sunroof and the 6-cylinder engine with the splitter for the dual exhaust setup and different letters on the rear. But it does have that same Comfort Tune suspension and wheels and tire setup, so it doesn't handle very well, so that makes it kind of sucky to drive. So let's roll it. And can we roll it upright? Of course we can, because I can just yank it. So damage there. Lots of crumpling. Oh, a little bit of strangeness on the exhaust, but you didn't get to see that exactly. Vehicle is currently non-functional, so I gotta pull it forward. So you can hopefully see that. There we go. So the exhaust looks a little stretched out and almost 2D or something right there. Just a bit, but otherwise seems like it did pretty good. So we're about halfway through all of the models, I think, and the next one we're going to be doing is the 854 TX, which means we're actually going back to the turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. Now we're going to be comparing this one to the 854 TC just because it is so similar to that one. So the TX compared to the TC, this one actually has rubber trim again, where the TC had the fancy chrome trim, and this one has different wheels, different letters on the back, and the most important change, though, is that this one has all-wheel drive. So it's even harder to spin it out, and it's even harder to induce oversteer than it was before, I think, because of that. Yep, now this thing is really understeery because of the all-wheel drive setup and the way it's tuned for that. Like, I can't get this thing to oversteer at all, just holding it to the left. I guess it's not happening unless I tap the dirt or something to get it to, or just hold it forever like I was doing right there. Understeer! I don't like the TX much at all. I think maybe this might be if you had the TX set up with the diesel engine, it'd be the worst model possible, unless you do this, where every time you see a corner, you power slide it, which doesn't always work according to plan, but sometimes it does. That time it didn't, though. That's actually immobilized the car basically, and we have almost no damage to the vehicle itself in terms of visualness. It's just the wheel and the suspension that got ruined. The vehicle itself, we just have a little bit of jiggle on the rear bumper. It looks like it fell off just a bit. Oh! Tire just exploded. Oh, we do have a little bit of damage up here too, but overall, like, the damage to the car is minimal. Tire to the tires and suspension, severe. Next up is the 856 TD, which is the touring model with a turbocharged 6-cylinder diesel engine. So we'll probably mostly be comparing it to the 854 TD, which is the 4-cylinder diesel. So let's go ahead and get that one up. Now, this 6-cylinder diesel actually makes 270 horsepower. So it's the fastest car you've seen so far by just a smidge in actual usage. It is just a tiny bit faster than the 6-cylinder gas model you saw a few minutes ago. So it's worth noting that. Now, compared to the 854 TD, this one has the dual exhaust system and the splitter that's set for dual exhaust, and then different wheels and tires. Otherwise, it's pretty much identical. Now, the engines, they do look different for like each model, but they are very similar because it has like a plastic engine cover, just like a lot of modern cars have. So to me, it's not really worth showing the engine just because of how similar they are. It's not like a dramatic difference that could be really like, oh, look at how different this is, because most of the engine bay is just kind of like a piece of plastic covering up the engine, which is boring to look at. Speaking of boring to look at, we really need to go to a new map or something. I'm driving the same roads over and over and over. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just respawn the next car wherever we're at when we crash this thing. And we're going a pretty good speed, so let's look into crashing it soon. There we go. I heard some glass shattering. Might be totally fine though. It's just a roll. Oh no, front suspension seems slightly damaged. Seems slightly, but it's actually significantly damaged. We're not going to drive much, so let's just reset the car right here, and then the next car we get will be spawned right here. So the next one is the 856 TX, which is the all-wheel drive touring model with a 6-cylinder engine. So compared to the 854 TX, the only difference is that this one has a sunroof, it has the dual exhaust, and it has the slightly faster 6-cylinder gas engine. Otherwise, pretty much the same. And of course, every car does have custom letters to it. You know, it says 856 TX. But aside from that, that's pretty much the exact same car. So you can drive this thing for around a bit. And with the all-wheel drive, again, you're gonna like understeer. Nice crash right there, right into the tree. Can we keep going at it? Let's hit the door. Let's hit the door. Come on, hit the door. I think I hit it. Well, I don't think we're gonna go much more than that, and looks like it turned out pretty well there as well. Crashed into the tree accidentally? Sure, why not? Next up, we have the 856 TT Sport, and this one has a lot of different parts compared to the ones you've seen before, so this one might take a minute to go through. So first off, the engine, it has a turbocharged 6-cylinder engine. The other 6 cylinders you saw before didn't have a turbo. So this thing makes 332 horsepower. It's definitely the fastest version you've seen so far by quite a bit. It's actually significantly faster than the ones you've seen previously. Then it also has a totally different suspension setup. So it has like different struts, brakes, sway bars, springs, shocks, tires, and wheels. Like all about that is different. One thing that's kind of interesting that I can show you though is it actually has, if we pull this off, I just threw that thing, wow. It has a different front strut brace. So that is this piece right here. It's a different design than the other one. The other one doesn't have, I think, half of this. It's basically just half of that. This one has like a brace in the front and back of the engine bay. So it's kind of interesting. And then this one also has different exhaust where it has like a dual exhaust. Does that make sense? You know what I mean, right? It has 4 exhaust tips. How's that? That sounds a lot better. It has a different transmission as well, so it shifts even faster than the normal ones. And lastly, it does have that other interior I was telling you about. So it's less chrome and more stitching kind of thing. Like you see, there's no real chrome in here, but it has like the stitching on the wheel and stuff. Oh, there's just a tiny bit of chrome. Oh, goodness. Yeah, I wasn't looking at all where I was going. But you can see what that looks like pretty well. And that car has been immobilized with very little damage, actually. That's kind of surprising. Final car up is the 856 TT Sport Plus. This one's almost identical to the one we were just driving, but it has all-wheel drive because it has a front transfer case, and then it has a plus on that logo. Otherwise, it's pretty much identical, same interior and stuff. All that's all the same. We could drive this thing around for a bit. Now this thing, again, with all-wheel drive, it is a little understeery, but because this one has the TT Sport suspension setup, it's not nearly as bad as the other ones, and it's just a tiny bit understeer. Like if you see me go through this corner, you see it does understeer, but well, okay, it does understeer pretty hard. Oh, it does really hard. Can you drive? Nope, we killed it again. This car seems pretty fragile, don't it? Like, I don't think I've really gotten through multiple crashes. I think problem is I just keep hitting it in ways that destroy it. Like this one tore off a wheel, and when you have all-wheel drive car missing a wheel, that's probably gonna break it. Well, let's then try going somewhere else and just driving around for a bit. How about we go and drive around Hirochi Raceway just for a bit? What I really want to show you is just how stable the 856 TT Sport Plus is. This thing, you have to try to spin it out, basically. Like, it will not spin out because of the way it's set up and the all-wheel drive and, like, the electronic stability control it has. So, like, if we go into this corner, we're going to slow down normally. We e-brake it, slide a bunch, no problem at all. Like, you can really just slide and no problem at all to get back in line because of the way the car is. It's just really hard to spin it out. It's almost like you have to try to spin it out. You see me, I'm actually half trying to spin it out, but it don't spin out. It just keeps going as long as you're not a total idiot. If I held the e-brake down forever, maybe, yeah, then we could probably get it to spin out, but really, you gotta tap the e-brake just to get it to oversteer, and even then, you gotta hold it to spin out. Like right here, just slide through it, no problem. Slide through the next one. But if we don't hit the e-brake at all, well, it kind of sucks. Like, you got to e-brake it to go around these corners. It almost feels like no e-brake. It's just like, oh, it actually turned in a lot harder than I thought it would. And we also popped a tire in the process, so now I don't expect it to do it all well here because it has a flat tire, but we'll try it out. So let's see. Oh, it actually did okay, but it's like, it doesn't feel as good as like when you're sliding it around the corners. It's like, oh goodness, the pop tire's killing it. That one was the pop tire's fault though. I don't blame the car for that. The tire's just ruined. So like this way, corner it. All right, let's just hit up the whoops. I popped another tire. I was gonna hit that wall, but apparently I can't because the tire was popped instead. So we got 2 blown front tires. We're still going 60 miles per hour. Let's hit that wall right there and take it out. Oh, interesting hits. Okay, well, I didn't have much control there, so that's not what I expected to happen. I also wouldn't have expected the that's the right rear, actually. The right rear tire to have come off. I was thinking a front tire came off there, but then I'm like, no, that's not a front, that's a rear. So get this thing upright, and looks pretty good to me. It actually will still kind of drive. I mean, it spun the wheels. Nope, it killed itself. It just killed itself while it was spinning the tires. You saw them spinning just for a second, though. It was functioning, and then no. So the only thing I really want to do now is just do a quick suspension test at grid map with the comfort and the normal and then the TT Sport kind of showing the differences. So what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to grab both a comfort model and a non-comfort model, so like the 854T and the 854TC, and I'm going to drive them right behind each other so you can see both of them, like one right after the other, and kind of compare how they look from the outside and maybe the inside as well. I haven't quite decided on that yet. So what I'm going to do is just going to line this run up like right... Well, actually, that one's not quite lined up right anyway, so let me do this. I'll just line up this one right here, like so. And I'll line up the red car right behind this one. Now, the red one is the non-comfort. The blackish, well, that's gray, actually, isn't it? It's more of a gray car. The gray one is the comfort model. So I'm just going to bring the camera over here, and then we'll start off by driving the comfort model across. And then we go with the non-comfort. Looked pretty similar, didn't it? Whoops! Hard to tell if there was really that big of a difference. How about if we do it from the inside? Sit at about 40 on the kilometers per hour. That is comfort, so that should be the smoother one. All right, how does the non-comfort then do? Oh yeah, it does seem a little bit more from the inside. You can tell, well, I'm going a little bit faster, which kind of makes it harder to tell, but you can actually tell, like I was really paying attention to how much like the parts wobbled, like the mirrors and stuff, and you could tell they were wobbling just a tad more because it doesn't have the comfort, and now it's ruined. So next up, let's do a comparison between the regular one and then a TT Sports suspension setup. So we'll do it from the inside because it seems like that's the best way to tell. So again, 40 miles per hour. That mirror, like look at the left mirror and see, do you see how rough that is? Like that looks pretty rough, right? So we're gonna do this next one. Whoops, get this car out the way. We're gonna do the next one also at about 50 miles per hour because that's where we did that one at, or kilometers per hour. And you look at the shaking of the mirror, it's shaking. Doesn't appear quite as violent as the other one did. And apparently it lost its wheel and is crashing all over the place, so I might as well come and help. Here to help. Gonna crash into you. Trying to find a cool camera angle. You know, maybe I'll do it manually. Give me that angle of the camera. Better. No, wait, good enough. I have a terrible camera angle for this, don't I? There's a good camera angle. Speed it up. That's not a bad collision. Looks pretty good. Like the angle I got on all that was actually really good. And somehow the red car ate the other car's tire. Like it just took it away. All these errors on the dash. It's like these are wrong. These are bad. This should not be happening. Check engine. How about this one? Same idea? Yep, same thing. I wonder if it specifically shows a certain light when something happens. Like, is it when the car is immobilized, basically? It says, hey, these lights are coming on now, or what? Wow, that was great. Oh, just blew up a tire, like, or that a wheel. I guess we blew up the wheel more than the tire. But yeah, that about covers the suspension, and I think that shows off most of what I want to do with this car, so let's just finish things off by throwing them off Leap of Death. For this, we'll just use the fastest option available because I see no reason why not to. More things to break as well because it is all-wheel drive. As long as we don't bottom out, yep, we're fine. That was a totally reasonable option. And away we go. We'll do this one at full speed, and then we'll do another run with slow-mo. So I won't mess with the camera. This is whatever the camera does, it does. I have no control over it. Well, I have control over it, but I'm not using that control. Interestingly enough, it almost looked like the wheels were churning, but that was not the case. Maybe it was. Wait, no way. It can't be. It has to be ruined by then. It's ruined by now, for sure, either way. All right, let's go again. This time we'll get the slow-mo. And of course, we'll try a different angle. We'll try to use these things, but they almost never work out how you would expect. You see, it just pushes you upwards. You don't go as far. Which actually means the first crash is usually sooner and less severe. If I wanted that, I could have just drove slower. Oh well, either way, here's the first crash. We'll do it 100 times slow-mo. And the car will be wrecked pretty much entirely at this point. Actually, it's doing all right. It hit just flat with the ground, so a lot of the roof line is still there and visible. It won't last, though, because we're going to have more impacts. Oh, wow, it's landing on the wheels again. That's actually really amazingly lucky. It's on fire, of course, so that's not a good thing, though. But for being on fire, that's not doing a half bad job. Like, you can still see pretty clearly where the roof was, where the door's attached, and everything. And nah, you can't probably. Well, you kind of can still. Like, this is the luckiest run you'll ever see of Leap of Death. Every time it wanted to land on its bottom. Except right there. Well, actually, even right there it did. That is amazing. Every time it landed on that part. I don't know how it did it, but it did. All right. One last thing to finish things up. Brutal slope. Let's go. Okay. Back up the car, and again, we'll just use the fastest one, and we'll get the all-wheel drive just because that'll help with the stability at high speeds, probably. And we can change the color up. We can go ahead and just say yellow because there hasn't been a yellow version of this car yet. You've seen all these other colors, but no yellow. So now you've seen a yellow. Now we go careful, 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 and accelerate. And we'll try to convertibilize it first, and after we do the convertibilization, then we will go and just crush it. But I think the convertibilization should be more interesting just because there is no sort of convertible for this vehicle, so let's see what it looks like. Maybe eventually there'll be a mod that convertibilizes it. I've seen mods that do that before, but never something like this. A wagon convertible? That's strange. Anyways, 16 times, 100 times slow-mo. Rushing that roof. Doesn't really matter if you see this impact too much. I'm mostly concerned about the other impact. This one I just like to see the outcome of. And that's a convertible. The camera has shifted too far to be usable, though. Can we stop in time? No way, no how. We are going to fly and get a little bit more damage. Can we drive? Actually, yes. We can still... Wait. Are we driving? I can't tell. Okay, yes, we are driving. For a second, I wasn't quite sure, but we are definitely still driving. We have 0 tires left, and we're just riding on the rims. But it works. Quite amazing. All right, let's go for the last run then, and this time we will go and hit the wall at... whoopsies. That's totally acceptable. That is totally part of the plan. That is exactly what I intended. I wanted to get a little bit of air. I said whoopsies accidentally. Yes, the mistake was saying I made a mistake. The truth is I'm flawless and I don't make mistakes. That was exactly as I intended. Except for the fact that I can no longer control the car partly because of some damage that was incurred from that mistake that really wasn't a mistake. Now the tires have blown, so it doesn't even matter though because I've totally lost control at this point. And all I can do is hope to keep it at least somewhat straight when we hit that wall. And it looks like we are going to be able to just do that, which is really exactly what I was looking for. And impact 3, 2, 1, boom. As expected, the car has entirely disappeared. You see a couple of glitches coming from the interior, a little bit of glitches coming from, it looks like the engine bay just a bit, but mostly just the interior that's messing things up. Otherwise, it looks like it did a pretty good crash. The only thing I want to point out is I did have a few times where the wheel stretched out, as you saw, I think, in one of my takes. So that didn't happen here, which is kind of unexpected. I guess that only happens when it catches on something or something like that. Anyways, that will do it for the ETK 800 series. Until next time, this has been WhyBeAre. I'll see ya.